There are decisions we make in seconds that determine the rest of our lives. I made mine one Friday night, 3 drinks in, with the arrogant certainty that nothing bad could touch me. I made a mistake I didn't even know was possible. My name is Adrian Morales, and for 32 years I walked through this world believing I had it all figured out. I was a civil engineer. I had a brand new BMW, an apartment in the most expensive part of town, and a bank account that grew every month. My friends envied me, women sought me out. My reflection in the mirror showed me the image of a successful man, someone who had achieved everything he set out to do. But there was something no one knew, not even me, until that night. Everything I had built was a sandcastle erected over an abyss that had been waiting for years to swallow me whole. Friday, September 22nd, began like any other, a morning business meeting where I closed an important deal. Lunch at that Italian restaurant where the waiters already knew my order. I spent the afternoon reviewing blueprints in my office, which had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city like a chessboard where I moved the pieces. At 6 p.m., Ricardo called. His voice on the phone had that euphoric quality I recognized immediately. He'd broken up with his girlfriend again and needed to drown his sorrows. I said yes without a second thought. Any excuse was good enough to celebrate my latest professional success. The bar was called El Refugio and was downtown, a place with dim lighting and music loud enough to avoid talking about important things. I arrived at 7. By 9, I'd already downed 4 double whiskeys and had that warm feeling of invincibility that alcohol so generously bestows upon fools. Ricardo was talking about his ex with the contempt and pain that characterizes newly broken hearts, but I was barely listening. I was thinking about the project I'd just landed, the upcoming promotion, and buying an even more expensive car. My life was a staircase that only went up, and I was too proud to look down and see how many people I'd stepped on to get there. By 11 p.m., Ricardo was too drunk to be any good company anymore. I put him in a taxi and gave him money to get home. I should have left too. I should have called a driver, taken a taxi, stayed at the bar until I sobered up. But the whiskey whispered that it was okay, that it was only a 15-minute drive, that I'd driven in worse conditions 1,000 times before. The BMW key weighed in my pocket like an invitation. Pride told me that a man of my stature wouldn't leave his car parked all night in a dangerous area, so I made the decision that would split my life in two. I walked toward the parking lot with steps I thought were firm, but that any observer would have recognized as those of a drunk. The interior of the BMW 2 smelled of new leather and that expensive air freshener I'd chosen with such care. I started the engine, and its gentle purr confirmed what I already suspected. I was in control. I always had been. I left the parking lot without a hitch. I navigated the first few streets with the automatic precision of someone who's driven the same route hundreds of times. The nighttime city flashed past my windows like a movie, neon lights reflecting off the windshield. Traffic lights obeying my every move, pedestrians barely shadows on the corners. At the third light, one of them red, I briefly considered stopping, but the street was empty. It was almost 11:30 at night. There was nobody around. I accelerated. The engine responded with that satisfying roar that made me feel powerful. 80 kilometers per hour in a 40-90 zone. Speed was another form of success, another way to prove that ordinary rules didn't apply to extraordinary men like me. I didn't see the bicycle until it was too late, or rather, my alcohol-soaked brain didn't process the information until the impact had already happened. A dull thud, a flash of twisting metal, the horrible screech of brakes when it was too late to stop. The BMW stopped 30 meters ahead. In the rearview mirror, I saw a dark shape in the middle of the street. My heart, which seconds before had been pounding with the confidence of alcohol, now pounded in my chest like a caged animal. I got out of the car, my legs barely holding me up. It wasn't the alcohol, it was something much worse. It was reality shattering around me like glass. I walked backward toward that dark shape, and with each step, I felt my perfectly constructed life crumble. The bicycle was a mangled wreck of twisted metal, and next to it, motionless on the asphalt, was a body. It was a young man, maybe 25, wearing grease-stained work clothes, a worker returning home from a night shift. His face was turned to the side, and in the yellowish light of the street lamp, I could see a trickle of blood running from his neck. His eyes were open, staring at something I couldn't see. He wasn't breathing. The world became incredibly silent. I could hear my own rapid, shallow breathing. I could hear the ticking of my Rolex watch. I could hear the whirring of the electrical wires above my head, but I couldn't hear the one thing I needed to hear: the breathing of the man on the ground. I knelt beside him. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely touch his neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. I tried to recall the CPR I learned in a mandatory company course years ago, but my mind was a whirlwind of panic. I began to press on his chest clumsily, counting aloud, 1, 2, 3, desperate for any sign of life. Nothing. I yelled for help, but the street was still empty, as if the entire universe had stopped, forcing me to face this moment alone. And then something inside me broke in a way I can't put into words. It wasn't just fear or guilt, it was something deeper. It was as if my soul, which had lived for 32 years locked in a box of certainty and arrogance, could suddenly see beyond the walls I had built myself. And what I saw terrified me. I saw my entire life as it truly was, not the success, not the achievements. I saw a man who had trampled others to climb the ladder. I saw the projects I had stolen, taking credit for the work of subordinates. I saw the secretary I had unjustly fired because she knew too much about my methods, questionable. I saw my younger brother, whom I had stopped speaking to because his modest life embarrassed me in front of my successful friends. I saw my mother dying alone in the hospital while I closed a business deal in another city, too busy to be there for her final hours. I saw every lie, every betrayal, every moment I had chosen my own gain over the well-being of another human being. And now, here was the final price of my selfishness, a dead man on the asphalt, because I had believed I was too special to follow the rules that protected ordinary people. Panic hit me then with full force. My first reaction, and this shames me more than anything else, was to think about how to get out of this. I looked around. The street was still empty. There were no cameras in sight. I could leave. I could leave the body there and drive home and wake up tomorrow pretending nothing had happened. My lawyer, Caro, could handle any problems if they connected the accident to me. I had enough money to make things disappear. That's what powerful men did, wasn't it? They made their problems other people's problems. I stood up, my knees stained with the dead man's blood. I took 2 steps toward my car, and then something happened that would change absolutely everything. The pain came without warning, a pain so intense, so utterly overwhelming, that I fell to my knees again. It wasn't exactly physical, though my chest burned as if I'd been pierced with a red-hot iron. It was deeper than that. It was as if every cell in my body was being ripped from its place. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to breathe, but my lungs wouldn't respond. The world went dark around the edges of my vision, narrowing until all I could see was the dead man's face in front of me. And then nothing. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't on the street anymore, at least not the street as I'd known it a second before. I was still kneeling on the asphalt, but everything had changed. Color had left the world, replaced by shades of gray and black. The silence was now absolute, so complete it hurt my ears. There was no sound of distant traffic, no wind, nothing. And when I looked at my body, I saw something that made my mind refuse to accept what my eyes were seeing. My chest wasn't rising or falling, I wasn't breathing. I raised a trembling hand to my neck, searching for the pulse I had searched for seconds before on the dead man. Nothing. My skin was cold. No, not cold, it was temperatureless, as if the very concept of heat and cold no longer applied to what I was now. I stood up with movements that didn't feel right, as if my body were a puppet and I had just discovered I wasn't in control of the strings. The cyclist's body was still on the ground, but now there was something else. There was another body, and when I forced myself to really look at it, even though every instinct screamed at me not to, I recognized the suit it was wearing. I recognized the Rolex watch. I recognized the face. It was me. I was dead on the ground a few feet from the man I had killed. My face wore the same expression of surprise I had seen on the cyclist. My eyes were open, staring at the night sky without really seeing it. A heart attack, perhaps, or an aneurysm. Shock and guilt had killed my heart before I could decide whether to run or stay. The terror I felt in that moment is beyond words in any human language. It wasn't the fear of being dead, it was something infinitely worse. It was the certainty that this wasn't simply death. It was the beginning of something I had spent my entire life ignoring, mocking, denying, something I was absolutely unprepared for. A voice spoke behind me, not exactly with sound, rather, the words appeared directly into my consciousness, as if someone were writing them on the surface of my soul. Adrian Morales, it's time. I turned and saw a figure. I can't describe it precisely because my mind was still trying to process the information in human terms, and this thing wasn't human. It was a vaguely humanoid form, but made of darkness, that moved, that breathed, that was alive in a way that defied all understanding. It had no face, but I knew it was looking at me, and in that look there was something worse than hatred. There was absolute indifference, total indifference to my terror. What's happening? My voice came out weak, childlike. This can't be happening, it can't be real. What is real and what isn't is no longer a relevant distinction. For you, your time for asking questions ended when your heart stopped. Now all that remains is to face the consequences. The figure extended something that might have been a hand, and the world shifted again. The grey grew darker, the cold deeper, and suddenly we were in motion, though I couldn't feel myself moving. It was as if reality itself was slipping away from us. We appeared in a place that shouldn't exist. It was an endless corridor with walls that seemed to be made of stone, but throbbed like living flesh. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into the darkness. The floor beneath my feet wasn't solid, it felt more like walking on water that somehow supported my weight. And the smell, God, the smell was death and decay, but it was also distilled despair. It was the scent of remorse made physical. Where am I? I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. You are in the place where accounts are settled, where every action finds its true weight. Your people have called it many names throughout the ages: hell, Gehenna, the abyss. Names don't matter. What matters is that you got here by your own choices. No, this has to be a mistake. I wasn't a bad person. I worked hard. I was successful. I never intentionally hurt anyone. The creature's laughter wasn't humorous. It was the sound of rusty doors opening. You never intentionally hurt anyone. What an interesting way to justify a life of calculated selfishness. Come, I have something to show you. It led me to a door in a hallway. The door was made of rotten wood, with stains that looked like dried blood. When it opened, it revealed a room I recognized immediately. It was my office, my imported mahogany desk, my diplomas on the walls, but something was wrong. The colors were muted, like an old photograph, and there was a sense that this was a memory, not a real place. Look, the creature commanded. At the desk was a younger version of me, 28 years old. I had just been promoted to project supervisor. Across from me sat Marco, a colleague who had been my friend for years. Marco had blueprints spread out on his desk, enthusiastically explaining an innovative building design that could revolutionize sustainable architecture in the city. I saw the passion in his eyes, the hope, the confidence that he was sharing this with me as a friend, not a competitor. I saw my younger self feel, smile, congratulate him. I saw him taking notes, and then 3 weeks later, I saw him presenting those same ideas to the company executives as if they were my own. I saw the promotion I got for that innovation. I saw Marco's face when he found out. The betrayal, the disbelief, the way his faith in humanity shattered a little that day. I didn't whisper. I improved his ideas, made them commercially viable. Keep watching. The scene changed. I saw Marco get fired 6 months later for poor performance. I saw his wife leave him when she couldn't get another job because of the negative references I had ensured he received. I watched his life crumble piece by piece, and finally, I saw Marco in a filthy bathroom with a bottle of pills in his hand, deciding that it wasn't worth trying anymore. The horror pierced me like a knife. He killed himself. He took his own life after a series of failures that began with your betrayal. But don't worry, Adrian, this is just the beginning of what you have to see. The room changed again. Now I was in a hospital. I recognized the date on the calendar on the wall. It was the day my mother died. She was, small and frail in the hospital bed, her body ravaged by cancer. My brother Pablo sat beside her, holding her hand, his eyes red from crying, and on the table by the bed was a telephone ringing over and over. It was my number. She was calling me. In her final hours, my mother was calling me. Answer the phone, I begged my past self, even though I knew she couldn't hear me. Please, answer the damn phone. But I wasn't there. I was in another city closing a deal I don't even remember now, a deal that had earned me $50,000. $50,000 I chose over being with my dying mother. I saw when she stopped calling. I saw when she asked Pablo where I was. I saw my brother's white light telling her I was on my way, that I would arrive soon. I saw her die waiting for me with that expression of hope that slowly turned into resignation. Her last thought had been that her eldest son, the successful one, the one who was always too busy, couldn't even make time to say goodbye to her. I fell to my knees. The pain was unbearable. I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry. Who are you asking forgiveness from? The creature asked. God, the same God you ignored for 32 years, the God whose name you used only to curse, or are you asking forgiveness from your dead mother who spent her last hours wondering what she had done wrong to raise such a cold son? Please don't show me any more. Oh, but we're only just beginning. You have all of eternity to see every moment, every selfish decision, every cruel word, every opportunity to do the good you chose to ignore, and when we're done reviewing your life, we'll start again, and again, and again, because that's what it means to be here, Adrian. It's facing the truth of who you are without the comfort of denial, without the protection of oblivion, forever. The scenes continued. I saw myself intimidating a young employee until she quit because she corrected me in front of a client, and my ego couldn't bear being made to look bad by a woman 20 years younger than me. I saw myself sabotaging Pablo's relationship with his girlfriend because she came from a poor family, and I thought it made us look bad. I saw myself rejecting a social housing project that would have helped hundreds of families because the profit wasn't enough to justify my valuable time. Each scene was a dagger to my conscience. Each revelation was another layer of my soul being peeled away to expose the rot beneath, and the worst part was that I couldn't deny any of it. I couldn't justify it. I couldn't rationalize it as I had in life. Here, in this place, beyond death, the lies we tell ourselves to fall asleep at night simply didn't work. The scene shifted to that night. I saw myself in the BMW, drunk, arrogant, convinced of my invincibility, but this time I saw something different. I saw through the cyclist's eyes. His name was Daniel Ruiz. He was 24 years old. He worked the night shift at a factory to support his ailing mother and his 2 younger sisters. That night he had worked overtime because his little sister needed books for school and he wanted to surprise her. He was tired, but happy, thinking about the look of joy on his sister's face when he gave her the books. He was cycling along the route he knew by heart, thinking about getting home, showering, and sleeping a few hours before another day began, and then he saw the lights, the BMW approaching too fast. He tried to swerve. In those last fractions of a second, Daniel Ruiz, who had never hurt anyone in his short life, felt absolute terror, and his last thought wasn't for himself, it was for his mother, wondering who would take care of her now. I felt the impact from his perspective. I felt her bones breaking. I felt her consciousness dissolving, and then I felt something that completely shattered me. I felt his spirit rising not to this dark place, but upward, toward a light I couldn't even look directly at. Daniel Ruiz, who had died because of me, was being welcomed into a place of peace, while I was here. Why did I groan? Because he goes there and I am here. He was just a worker. I built buildings. I changed the city's skyline. I was important. The creature's laughter was like shattering glass. Important. You built monuments to your own ego. Daniel Ruiz built something infinitely more valuable. He built love in the hearts of his family. He built character in the face of adversity. He built hope where there was none, and when he died he left a void that will be felt for generations, while your death will be secretly celebrated by all those you trampled on your way up. The truth of those words crushed me like a collapsing building. I fell to the ground and wept in a way I had never wept in my life, tears that weren't water, but something denser, darker, tears that tasted of all the missed opportunities, all the love I rejected, all the humanity I had sacrificed on the altar of my ambition. I don't know how long I lay broken on that impossible ground. Time didn't exist the way it used to. It could have been a second, it could have been 1,000 years. When I finally looked up, the creature was still there, watching me with that terrible indifference. What now? I asked in a voice that was barely a whisper. Are you going to torture me for eternity? I will torture. The creature almost seemed offended. Adrian, I'm not here to torture you. I am merely the guardian of this place. You are the architect of your torment. Everything you've seen, everything you've felt, comes from your own conscience, finally freed from the lies you wove around it. This is the hell you built for yourself, brick by brick, selfish decision after selfish decision. So, there is nothing, no hope, no way to redeem me. For the first time, something shifted in the creature. If it had a face, I would have said it looked surprised. Redemption, what a strange concept coming from you. Why would you want redemption now? In life, you scoffed at the very idea. You said religion was for the weak, that you didn't need any God's forgiveness because you hadn't done anything wrong. I was wrong. The words poured out of me like a confession, like poison being drained from a wound. I was terribly, horribly wrong. I was a monster. I didn't see it because I didn't want to see it, but I was. I destroyed lives, ruined good people, and I killed Daniel Ruiz, a man who was better than me in every possible way. And now what? Now that you've seen the truth, you expect a merciful God to appear and tell you that everything is all right, that your tears of repentance erased decades of cruelty. No, the word came out with absolute certainty. I don't expect to be told that everything is all right. Nothing is all right. What I did is unforgivable. The damage I caused is irreparable. But I paused, searching for the words to express something I barely understood myself. But if there is anything I can do, if there is any way to face the consequences of my actions in a way that matters, that helps in any way to balance, even a fraction, the evil I did, I will do anything. The silence that followed was absolute. The creature watched me with an intensity that felt like physical pressure, and then slowly moved away. Behind where it had been standing, something new appeared. It wasn't a door, it was more like a crack in the darkness, and through it came a light, not the warm, comforting light I had seen carrying Daniel away. This light was different. It was cold, it was judgmental, but within it there was something that felt like possibility. There is one, the creature said, whose domain is not this place, one who even now, even here, offers what you do not deserve, but the price of his mercy is not cheap. Adrian Morales, it requires something that men like you have never known how to give. What? I asked desperately. What does it require? It requires that you renounce everything you were. It requires that you accept that the man you thought you were never really existed. He was just a mask over an abyss. It requires absolute humility. It requires that you face every person you hurt, not as the successful man you thought you were, but as the sinner you truly were. And it requires that you spend what remains of your existence serving those you once despised. What remains of my existence will pass, but I am dead. Death is not the end you thought. There is beyond this place, but to get there, you must first complete your judgment. You must see every life you touched, you must feel every pain you caused, and you must make peace with every soul you harmed if they are willing to receive you. This process could take what you would call centuries, and at every moment you will feel the weight, the totality of your actions. Without the relief of oblivion was a terrifying prospect, but when I compared it to the alternative in eternity reliving my worst moments, trapped in the darkness of my own making, I found there was something inside me, something small and fragile that had survived despite decades of being stifled by my ego, that wanted to try. I accept, I said, whatever it takes, I will do it. The light through the crack intensified, and then a voice spoke, not like the creature, not like words in my mind. This voice was different, it was infinite, it was terrible, it was beautiful, it was the sound of the universe breathing. Adrian Morales, you spent your life building towers toward the sky, but with rotten foundations. You amassed wealth, but impoverished your soul. You rose by trampling others, and when you finally found the end of your road, you found it in the blood of an innocent. Each word was a hammer striking the deepest truth of my existence. There was no defense, no excuse, but even now, even here, I offer you what you don't deserve, a chance. It won't be easy, it won't be quick. It will hurt in ways you can't imagine, but if you genuinely seek redemption, if you truly desire to become something different from what you were, then there is a way. Yes, I said, and this time there was absolute certainty in my voice. Yes, please. The light expanded, engulfing me, and in that moment of being completely exposed, completely vulnerable, completely naked before a presence that saw every dark corner of my being, I felt something I had never felt in life. I felt love, not romantic or familial love, but something greater, purer, a love that knew exactly how awful I had been and still offered the possibility of transformation. And I wept again, but these tears were different. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of regret so profound it felt like being taken apart down to the atom and rebuilt anew. When the light faded, I was no longer in the dark corridor, I was in a new place, a place that seemed like a cross between a hospital and a monastery. The walls were plain stone, but clean. There was light, dim but constant, coming from no visible source, and there were others here, shadows of people, some so faint I could barely see them, others more solid. A man approached me. He was old, with a long beard and eyes that had seen too much. "Welcome to the place of refinement," he said. "This is where souls like yours come to learn what they didn't learn in life." "Who are you?" "In life, I was a corrupt politician. I stole millions, ruined thousands, but when I died, I was brought before judgment, and like you, I found I didn't want to accept eternal darkness, so I chose the difficult path. I've been here for what would be 80 years in earthly time, facing every person I hurt, making restitution where possible, learning humility where there was only pride, and then what? When does it end? It ends when we've been completely transformed, when the last stain of our selfishness has been burned away, when he can look at those we've harmed and feel their pain as if it were our own. Only then are we worthy to move on to what comes next." He showed me my cell, a simple room with a cot, a table, and on the wall an endless list of names. I recognized some immediately: Marco, my mother, Pablo, the secretary I'd fired, and many others whose names I'd forgotten, but whose lives I had touched you in negative ways. "This is your list," the old man explained. "Each name represents a debt, each name is someone you must confront, whose forgiveness you must seek. Not everyone will forgive you, some will refuse to see you, that will be your burden to bear, but you must try with each one." And so began my true punishment, which was also my only chance at redemption. The first name on the list was Marco. When I spoke his name, the space around me shifted, and he was there, not as a memory, but as a real presence. His soul somehow manifested in this impossible place. What followed was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I had to look into the eyes of the man whose life I had destroyed and tell him the truth without embellishment, without justifications. I had to see his pain again, feel it resonate with my own, and I had to accept it when, at the end of our conversation, he looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust and said, "I can't forgive you, maybe someday, but not today." Those words hurt more than any physical torture could have, but it was a necessary pain. It was the weight of the consequences I had avoided in life. I moved on to the next name, and the next. Some forgave me after long, painful conversations, others refused. Each encounter taught me something, showed me a part of myself I had denied. It forced me to grow in ways I never had in life, because in life I had been too proud to admit I needed to grow. Years passed, or what felt like years in this place where time didn't work properly. Slowly, very slowly, I felt something changing inside me. The defenses I had built around my ego began to crumble. The man who had been arrogant, ruthless, and cold began to truly die, and in his place, something new began to emerge, something more human, something that could feel the pain of others without immediately trying to retaliate, to turn that pain into something about myself. And one night or day was hard to distinguish. I woke up and found the list on my wall was shorter. The names I had made peace with, those who had found in their hearts the capacity to forgive me, had disappeared from the list. It didn't mean my damage was undone. The damage was permanent, but it meant I had begun the process of honestly confronting it. The work continues. There are names I still must confront, conversations I still need to have, lessons I still need to learn, but I am no longer in complete darkness. There is a light before me, distant but real, a promise that even for someone like me, someone who squandered the life they were given and ended it by taking another's, there is a path to something better. I don't know when I will finish this journey. I don't know if I will ever be purified enough to move on to the next place. But now I understand something I never understood in life. A person's worth is not in what they build for themselves, myself, but how it affects the lives of others. And I, who built so much for myself, left only ruin in the lives I touched. But I am learning, I am changing, and maybe, just maybe, when the time comes to stand before final judgment, I will no longer be the man who drove drunk that night. I will be something different, something better, someone who finally understands what it means to be human. If I could go back and talk to my past self, to the Adrian Morales who thought he had it all figured out, I would tell him this: life isn't a ladder you climb alone, it's a web of connections with other human beings, and every time you hurt someone on your way up, you're cutting threads in that web. Eventually, when you've cut enough threads, you'll discover there's no net to catch you when you fall, and we all fall eventually. The only question is, what will you have built in your life that will be worthwhile when that moment arrives? Will you have built towers of ego and ambition that will crumble in the wind? Or will you have built bridges of love and compassion that will remain even after you're gone? I built the towers and watched them collapse in a single night. Now I'm trying to learn how to build bridges, even though it's too late to cross them back to the life I lost. May my story be a warning, my pain a lesson, and may my search for redemption, however difficult, inspire others not to wait until after death to face the truth of who they are. Because one night of drinking led me to hell, but it wasn't the alcohol that condemned me, it was a lifetime of selfish choices, a cold heart, and a denied humanity. The alcohol only revealed who I had been all along, a man who valued his own success above human life. And now, in this place beyond death, I'm slowly learning what I should have learned in life, that the only real wealth is the love you give, that the only height that matters is how far you stoop to help others, and that the only legacy worth leaving is having made the world a slightly better, slightly kinder place by having been in it. I wish I had learned it before it was too late, but at least here in this place of eternal refinement, I have the chance to learn it now, and I cling to that chance with all that I am, because it's all I have left.